Johan, thank you for coming on. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Yes, hello, Adam, and thank you so much for allowing me to be on this podcast. So, I've been working in the care sector and as person-centered software now for a year. And before that, I've had a long career within software and especially fast-growing software companies around the world. And person-centered software is a super exciting business. We've, in short order, incorporated quite a few features to our platform. And what we're seeing is a very, very quickly maturing landscape of care providers out there. They went from a paper-based system not long ago, and they're already now talking about artificial intelligence as a way of benefiting the people in care. And one of the things that really, really strikes me with this industry is the purpose-led nature of it. Coming to a company where everyone wakes up in the morning knowing that the software that they put out there in the carer's hands is doing good from the minute it's turned on. That's quite a good feeling, to be honest. So every day I think about, the 11 million care notes that was produced that day in our systems and stored, and that means interactions with people. And that's, fantastic to know that we've enabled those interactions to happen much more efficiently than they could have done otherwise.
Yeah, that's great. And we were talking just before we at the on top of this episode about there are of course a number of care providers who may still be on those paper-based systems or more paper-based than perhaps digital and going through that transformation. But those who are kind of fully immersed and those are kind of getting there, but and all the different challenges and thinking and questions that they may have. But and today we're going to focus on what the future may hold for digital care platforms, what the innovations ultimately to help make life easier for those on the care management side. So, I mean, you just talked about AI, for example, and it's curious, isn't it, how quickly it's gone from paper-based to there was a massive change to digital during COVID, and now suddenly this thing called AI is coming to the picture quite rapidly, and algorithms, all this kind of talk and how it may or may not make our lives better. So let's talk about a little bit about how you some of the things that you see, Johan, is the digital care platforms will have in its locker and we'll be thinking about in the future for
Yeah, I think one of the, of
2025 and beyond. Yeah.
course, thank you. And I think one of the key aspects of this is really the data and the stringency of the data that's collected. And the way we collect it is that all care providers use the same symbols and the same way of entering data. So the storage of that data is exceptionally stringent. So we can compare and contrast uh, data between all care providers that use our system. And we noticed this quite early on. And already 2.5 years ago, we built some algorithms to look at that data and to learn from it and think about how can this data then benefit the resident in care, because that's ultimately when we plan for our future, what we think about is how do we make life better for the resident in care. That's the number one on our radar. And what we thought about was then what are the highest risk challenges that you see to the well-being of a resident in care, and one of them is falls. If you fall, there is a very high likelihood that you'll won't come back from that alive in a
Mm,
year's time or so.
mm.
And that's a terrible thing. It's very easy to fall, and it's also very easy to see the mechanisms behind the fall. We know very well what it is that enables a fall to happen. So we took all of that data that we store, and last year we stored over 2.7 billion data points around this that we took through our algorithms, and we built an algorithm that could, with very high accuracy, say if someone were likely to have a fall within the next week or so that the care staff could do something about it. We don't diagnose; we just give them a tool to say there is a risk here and you can do something about it. Up to you, of course, how you will want to treat that and how you will want to handle it. That's within your carer training and that's within the care organization purview to handle. But we would like to just be able to show that. And we've now been through, over the last couple of years, some legal work to enable us to actually utilize our algorithms and the data in that way, so that we can bring these features out to the wider market and our customers. And we're very, very excited about that. And we think that one of the big things going forward next year and beyond will be the use of that data for various purposes that will benefit the resident. We also have algorithms that can identify a risk of urinary tract infections early on, so that you can treat them before they happen and make sure that they don't happen.
Mm.
And other things like fluid intake is something we're looking at. Weight loss, a fourth thing, and we can do algorithms for benchmarking of care providers between each other and care homes versus other care homes in a group, for example, through the data that we hold. So there is quite a few things that we see coming out of all of this, and I think one of the areas where we are quite excited about the use of this is that the standards body is now actually taking this quite seriously. So they understand the value of this data, and we can work with them to make sure that we hold the right type of data sets, and that we give the right type of data back to the care providers, so that they use them in the right way, and also that we can build standards around it, so that other care software providers can also create things like this.
Yeah, I'm curious around about falls, for example,
Yeah.
about risks of falls. So, what kinds of variables and factors do you see that come into play then on that algorithm?
Yeah, there are actually quite a few well-known factors.
Mm.
Fluid intake and hydration is important.
Yeah.
You're dehydrated, you're more likely to
Mm.
have fall. Interestingly, caffeine intake is also a factor when it comes to falls. So
Mm.
apparently, studies made on our data showed that a high level of caffeine intake increased the risk of falls. That's not to say you shouldn't have coffee.
Yeah.
It's just it was a marker. And the way that the algorithms train, they find other correlations between things, and they don't always tell us. so they
Yeah.
so it is a little bit of a black box when you start doing this,
Yeah.
and then it sees false, and it sees what's led up to it, and when it does it over a big enough data set, it then draws conclusions and presents them back.
I see. So, and the same again as you mentioned for urinary tract infections. So I'm not don't have PCS in front of me right now. So I imagine it's kind of these kind of alerts that might be popping up on the dashboard that will be starting increasingly more so to alert the teams as to any particular issues come or risk factors get to a heightened level. Is that sort of
Yeah.
how this kind of increasingly way of combining algorithms with alerts, is that how it would be working?
Yeah, that's the idea. So there will be a few different ways of interrogating this. So one
Mm.
is when there is a high risk of something, we can alert it automatically to even to the care staff on the floor using the handheld device that we've provided them with, or it can be on in the station on the stationary computer or laptop that they use. In a dashboard where it shows people with risk, so that they're in the handover, they can discuss this with the care staff when they come on shift, so
Oh,
that they know to look after these people specifically.
yeah,
You typically put a risk flag on some residents then and say there is now a risk for something. That's something the care provider will do, not the software.
yeah,
But we can give them the tools to know that there is a risk, thanks to the algorithms we have.
I
So that's
see.
quite exciting.
Yeah, great, great. So that's kind of falls, urinary tract infections, for example. You talk about fluid intake, weight loss, and and I think all of us can see the value of that. It's like a prompt, isn't it,
Yeah.
for teams to be, just be doubly aware, be important, think about this, and see how that becomes valuable. Are there any other? Because I know that not only PCS but other digital platforms do a whole number of, you have a whole suite of functionalities and solutions within the platforms. Are there any other particular ways you think 2025 and beyond there's going to be more developments?
So again, it actually is a lot in the data side of things. So we have 9 different products within our suite of tools, including medication management and wellness and activities and others.
Yeah.
And for us, the joined up data between these platforms will help the care providers quite a lot. So one of the high priority items on our list of things to do is to make sure that we store that data in a way that is meaningful, and we can show it in a meaningful way to our customers. And that's a big piece of work. As I said, it's more than 11 million care notes a day just in one system. And then, of course, we have 13.5 million medication administrations handled through our medication management system in a month. So adding all of this up, it's a very, very large data set that we have to handle very responsibly. Of course, this is highly personal data, so it has to be stored securely and it can't go anywhere it shouldn't. That's critical. So we're very, very, very careful with the data. At the same time, we want to be able to present it back to the care provider so that they can use it for helping the resident get better care. So it's quite
Yeah.
an interesting dilemma we're in here with, on the one hand, we need to really take care of that data and not show it to anyone. On the other hand, we really want to show it to them because they can do something with it. So yeah, so
Yeah.
that's an
No.
exciting dilemma we have for next year.
Yeah, fascinating. And I guess probably something that's on your mind, as it is with all digital platforms, is that usability, the
Yeah.
ease of use for the teams at the home or whoever's, responsible. I guess we're always kind of looking at that. And, we all know it makes such a difference for all of us if we are using a digital platform, whatever sector it may be, that making friendly to use and uncomplicated. I don't need to be a tech person to use it, all that kind of stuff. So tell me a little bit more about what you're what you're looking at in moving forwards on that area. I mean, I've seen various platforms and I've seen some that are like really clunky. I don't, are hard to understand to get to grips with.
Yeah.
Tell me where you are at with this kind of usability, friendliness of usability, and what the future might hold in that respect.
Yeah, I think it's very important. I think the reason person-centered software came into existence was actually just that, make something very, very easy for the care staff on the floor to use frontline. And this is typically used by people that there's a high level of attrition in the sector, turnaround of people every year, and you can't give them a lot of training all the time because they need to be out and giving care. So having a complex system for them to use just doesn't work.
Hmm.
And that means what we had to do and what the founders of the company did really cleverly was to make it very easy to find the person that they were giving care by a picture of them on the handheld device that they were using. And you press that, and from that picture, you just get a set of icons that are self-explanatory so that you can very easily just record what you're doing and it guides you through in a very simple way. And that makes the journey for evidencing and registering care exceptionally quick. So it's not only quick, it's very easy to do, and you limit the number of mistakes you can make because you
Hmm.
just pick something that's already predefined. So that has been fantastic, and that's the core of the care experience with our software. If you look at the other side of this, the care management side, I think our software was best at the care staff, frontline staff. If you look at the care management, when they tried to pull reports in our systems, that was quite difficult sometimes. And
Hmm.
when the CQC came knocking and wanted to do an inspection, pulling the data together could be quite cumbersome. So we've made some real strides in that too, so that the care management within the home, but also on group level in bigger groups, it will be greatly simplified. And we've already made quite a few changes there to make it a lot easier to get to the data that you need.
Hmm.
And also assign it so that you can actually allow CQC inspectors to do some of that work remote. So you don't have to have them in the home to look at the status of things, for example.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
no, that sounds great. And thank you. And we were talking about this before at the top of the episode about the PCS acquired for a while ago now. I don't know, about a year ago, was it? Something
It's
like
about
that.
2 years ago.
2 years
Yeah.
ago, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was. I guess that was a new venture in a sense for a
Yeah,
digital platform where you're going to tagging on something which is very, very physical.
yeah.
So just tell me about this partnership between physical exercise and the digital platform, how that works, why you felt it was important for you to. I mean, obviously, a well-known activities provider, and why you decided to do that, and how you feel that it complements what is essentially a digital solutions platform.
Yeah, for us, again, because we have the filter of the resident well-being be at the heart of everything we do, it was quite natural that they would buy a
Mm,
solution like a wellness and activities solution like Oomph. And Oomph at the time was by far the best out there. It still is,
mm,
in my humble opinion, but it has a very, very rich content set, and we know that the content is well vetted for for people living with dementia, for example. There are few providers that have the breadth and depth of content that we have available for activities and for other things within the platform. And the platform is meant to be, of course, directly used by residents if they're able, but also used by activities coordinators and others in the organization to enable a lot of residents within the care setting. And and I think that's ultimately it is about giving the frontline staff access to better tools to be able to do what they are really good at and limit the amount of time they need on administration and tedious planning tasks when they know what they need to do. With our tool, they can just make it a lot more efficient.
I
And then, of
see.
course, as you do it, you also record care. So you record the activity that you undertook with your residents, and that means that you know that they've been through this, and that will also improve. And you can see how they fared what was doing the activity, and that will then help you give them better care going forward.
Mm,
So,
mm.
so it's quite. I think it's a very positive move for us to have bought a platform like that.
Yeah. And finally, if I can ask you, for those who haven't made yet this digital platform switch, particularly around care management, tell me what are the concerns that they may be having, and what if they haven't made that switch yet, how you tend to help them overcome those concerns.
Yeah, I think if you're still on a paper-based system and you haven't considered moving yet, I think the time is really now.
Mm,
Funding for digital social care records transition from paper is running out in March next year, and I think there is a deadline
mm,
in December this year to apply. So you really want to get going as soon as possible with that. Uh, we of course have an enormous amount of experience in helping people get from paper to a
mm,
digital care. So the way that we do this is with a very controlled process where people come to us, talk to us about how their paper system works, and typically it works pretty similarly between care providers. There is of course nuances, and people have different focus areas, and you can take them into account when you move in into the digital system. But I think it's very important that you allow the system to help you. You don't work against it. The system is built in a certain way for a reason, and it makes perfect sense to just work with the system, and then you can extend as you become better at using it, and don't try to do too much at once. I think that's a very good piece of advice for people doing that transition. It's
mm.
if you're a multi-home group and you haven't started yet, start in one home, and preferably a home that's open to new technology, so you don't have to fight against change management issues straight away.
Yeah,
Uh, because that typically can undermine a whole program of work
yeah,
otherwise.
yeah, I see. Great. Yeah, and thank you very much. Now, is there anything that you've not covered that you feel that you specifically would like to make sure that you tick off?
And what I would like to say is that now, having been in this industry for a year, it's
Mm,
fantastic how warm this industry is to newcomers like me. And so I'm very, very happy to be a part of it, to be honest. Yeah, exceptionally happy to be in the industry and very, very glad to have been invited to this podcast. Thank you, Ed.
great. Johan, thank you very, very much for being on the KSCO Success Stories podcast.
Thank you.